Good afternoon. This is the last presentation, the last session of the last day of the last Southwest Fox. That is absolutely no pressure whatsoever.
In person.
In person. Adding to the pressure, I realized a little while ago that when I was filling out evaluations for the other speakers, rather than logging into my anonymous account, I accidentally did the evaluations in the account with my name on it, which means every speaker here knows exactly what I wrote about them. But I figure that Fox Pro speakers are kind, compassionate, considerate kind of people who would not hold that against me. Right. So this presentation is using Google Calendar in VFP. I hope you all got that marked down for the right date and time. I hope you all got that marked down for the right date and time. You like that one, huh? All right, about this session. Wouldn't it be great, folks, to be able to show the user a Google Calendar? They could manage it for them in VFP. Google scares off application integrators because their logins are complex, their access requirements. Google does everything they can to make sure that it's difficult to access their system from another piece of software. So we're going to use Chilkat library and a few other things to access and manage our Google calendars, selecting calendars, viewing entries, and actually creating a VFP calendar display populated with entries from the Google Calendar right on a VFP form. Wow, that's cool. We're going to learn what a Google Calendar is. We're going to learn how to log into Google with the latest auth requirements and get a token. We're going to learn how to select a calendar, add, delete, and view, and how to create a VFP form with a calendar showing the Google data. Except for the fact that we have a little tiny itsy-bitsy weensy problem. I built this huge app based on Chilkat. And Windows 10 latest update, including Windows 11, broke the Chilkat functionality. It does not return the proper auth code. So I was on the phone, or email rather, phone is an old-fashioned thing, and the Chilkat people are definitely looking into that. I said, do you think you could look into it like, this next hour or so? And they didn't seem to think so. So we're making a few minor adjustments, right? We've got all the things crossed out here. We're going to use the Chilkat library to, you'll see what we're going to do with that. And about this session, we're going to review the major options for accessing Google Calendars in VFP, including Chilkat, WebKit X, and AntView. This is going to be way more fun than what I originally intended, especially to the Chilkat people. We're going to learn what a Google Calendar is, and we're going to learn about getting tokens, and you'll see exactly how we're going to deal with that. Now, one more itsy-bitsy, weensy-tiny thing. Since the whole app broke, guess what was no longer relevant? White paper. So those of you who looked and seen, I don't have a white paper up there. You can call the Chilkat people. I'll give you their email, and you can tell them, right? So I've been frantically trying to get a new white paper, and it's in the done vicinity. So at some point, I will ask our friendly organizers to put it up. Right now, we'll just hope that kind, compassionateness stuff I was talking about carries through. Can you hear me in the back?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. According to the official Fox Pro Southwest Fox rules, I am required to tell you why it is that you should be listening to me. I don't really know, but here are some things that they said I should write. Vinitsky Consulting, my company, we develop and market major vertical applications for nonprofit organizations and community centers. We provide custom software and website development and consulting and advisory services to companies of all sizes. I think our largest client ever was IBM. Our second largest was Ava's Rent-A-Car, all the way down to small mom and pop shops. Personally, I've been working with Fox since the days of FoxBase and CompuServe. I don't know if anybody remembers CompuServe. Yeah, 70036, I'm a 510. That was my CompuServe number. And I never say that around my wife because I've been married 38 years, and in 38 years, I'm trying to convince her I can't remember anything she says. So if she sees that I can remember a CompuServe login from 25 years ago, the garbage will have to go out all the time. So back when there were magazines and more regional users groups, I used to do presentations for them. My personal favorite thing that I enjoy in VFP is expanding the capabilities of Fox Pro. If you remember when Windows first came out, DOS was still a big thing. And there was Fox Pro DOS and Fox Pro Windows. Now, one of the big disadvantages of Fox Pro DOS is the output didn't look like Windows output. So I worked with a printer driver to recreate Windows type output from DOS, which was very cool for at least a couple of years, so it was obsolete. And nowadays, I enjoy extending, the web application, different things to extend the features of Visual Fox Pro 9. Here's what we're hitting today. Google Calendars, what publishing means. Display a browser in a form with no ActiveX control whatsoever. Chilkat, WebKit X, AntView, and then we'll review what we've done today. Any questions so far? Terrific. By the way, I really, really like questions. So feel free to question anytime. I'll either answer it or I'll tell you I'm going to get to it. Right? Same thing if someone asks a question online, just interrupt me and give me the question. You'll see here that there are not going to be character illustrations this year, as there normally are in my slides, because of the fact that my professional illustrating contractor, right, felt that she was too busy to help Dad with the illustrations this year. I don't see why, but I'm going to let it go. Just the kind of dad that I am. All right, first thing we're going to learn about is Google Calendars, or what I like to call do no evil. For a company whose motto is do no evil, they have not lived up to their motto. Microsoft really likes Google. And you know why? Because now everybody hates Google instead of Microsoft. The same reason that years ago, IBM loved Microsoft, because everybody hated IBM. Then Microsoft came along, everybody hated Microsoft and said, well, IBM, that's not so bad, right? So Microsoft is really happy with Google despite all of their complaints. And interestingly enough, every one of these companies has achieved their success in exactly the same way. They take some sort of feature and they leverage it in a questionable manner, but things like antitrust law and legal action in this country are nowhere near being able to keep up with software. So, for example, if you remember way back in the day, IBM had an operating system called OS2. And it was actually a better operating system than Windows. But Microsoft said anybody who buys a computer with Windows, if you don't put Windows on it, will never sell you any Windows licenses ever. It's either all or nothing. And no vendor could afford to make computers that couldn't run Windows. So within a year or two, OS2 was down the tubes. Now, IBM sued Microsoft. It took something like 15 years in court. Microsoft was found guilty and had to pay like a $20 million fine. Okay. I don't think they were too concerned about it. The damage is already done. That's how companies move in and out. It's the fact that we can't really keep up legally with what goes on in software. It moves too fast. So Google came along and they leveraged their search success into things that Microsoft would rather than not doing, such as calendars. Here's a Google Calendar. A Google Calendar, it's not the most beautiful looking calendar ever in the world, but it's functional. I have today our presentation on here. Should I zoom in or can you see that okay? Okay?
You can figure it out.
All right. Well, I'll zoom in just a little bit for you, Mike. And Google Calendar works as simply as you would think a calendar does. You simply click where you want, you add an event in, you give it a title, everything you've ever come to appreciate in a calendar. And how did Microsoft get so ubiquitous? I'll give you two words: Android. Right? Because of the fact that Android runs Google software, they were able to put this Google Calendar on every phone. Now you're going to say, what about iPhones? Interestingly enough, iPhones, which have a big share of the market in the United States, do not have the biggest share of market in the rest of the world. Samsung has something like 68, 70% of the rest of the world. That's interesting, has nothing to do with today's presentation, but you're supposed to be like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, you guys will get it. Now, one of the things you can do with Google is you can have multiple calendars. So I have my default calendar. Every user has a default calendar. When you log in, that's the calendar you see. You can then make as many additional calendars as you want. So I made a calendar called Southwest Fox. And on the Southwest Fox calendar, I have my Southwest Fox things. And on my personal calendar, I have the Southwest Fox things. So I have two calendars listed here. And I can have as many calendars as I want. Each calendar has its own set of dates on it and entries and tasks. Entries and appointments. And I can see any combination of those calendars that I want. So I can be looking at these two calendars at the same time, or only one, or only the other. Now, this seems relatively straightforward, and it is, but it doesn't do the kind of things that we want it to do. So Google said, I know, you can publish your calendars, or checking up on others, as I like to call it. Publishing the calendar is a little bit different than just running the calendar. To publish a calendar means that you're going to decide whether this calendar falls into one of three categories. The first category is that everybody can see this calendar. The second category is you will assign users who can see this calendar. And the third category is you will let anybody see it, but once they see it, in order to go further, they have to get permission from you to go further. So there are three different ways that I can make a calendar public. When I make a calendar public, it gives me a URL. That URL is what everybody uses to be able to see the calendar. And then when I get to that URL, it decides, can I edit it? Do I need permission? Do I have to be an assigned user? Or can anybody see it? Any questions so far? Terrific. Terrific. Now, when I publish a calendar, I can publish each calendar separately. I cannot publish a combination. So I cannot publish a calendar that automatically combines these two calendars. I can publish either one of these calendars, and it gives me a URL. We'll see that URL in a minute, and just how we use it. Once that public determination has been made, it stays that way until you unpublic it. Unpublic it? I guess that'll be private it. Now that publishing leads us to a very interesting thing. We all know that you cannot really display much in the web browser control in Visual Fox Pro, correct? Correct? Okay, nod or something. Correct. We all know that, except it's not completely 100% true, because I can display anything I want, right, in a window in VFP. And the way to do that is a methodology that came up, the people at SS Ultimate Controls came up with the basic idea. And since most everything I know in the world I borrowed from other people, right? I borrowed their idea. I'm going to see what we can do with it. Font big enough? Right, we're going to create a simple form. It's going to be called Chrome inside the VFP form. We're going to put it on the desktop. We're going to make it centered, and we're going to add a button called Exit, because we're really afraid of getting stuck in all this, and we want to be able to get out somehow. So I'll put a little button at the bottom for Exit. Exit simply releases the form. Now, on the load, all we have to do is declare a few things. 14 few things if you want. And we'll see that all these things are going to be used in really just a couple lines of code. Once we declare all these things, and you'll see that there's some of the things we use a lot, we're probably familiar with: shell execute, get active window, find a window, get window text length is something we probably won't use. We don't use that much. Is the window visible? We don't use that much. But these are all similar functions in Win32. And what we're going to do with those is as follows. This is the URL that Google gave me for my calendar. It's actually one long URL, but in order to run shell execute, I split it into the actual URL and then the parameter. So this parameter here, that is my unique parameter to my calendar. When I run shell execute, I'm simply going to open that URL and pass it the long string that identifies my calendar. I'm going to open up my form, sleep for a while, and then do search process. Now, this is where the heavy lifting occurs. What we're going to do is we're going to scan through all the windows that are currently open in our Windows system, and we're going to look for the one that is currently displaying the Chrome browser and is currently displaying my calendar. We're going to do that by looping through and looking for the title that we're looking for. So, for example, if calendar is in the Windows title of the window, that's the one we want. Once we find that, we're going to simply take that window, grab its handle, grab the handle of our own Fox Pro window, and put one inside of the other. Let's see how it works. Worked pretty good. Fortunately, we have our exit button down here. Let's see what's happening here. I assure you that about we're 15 minutes in, 16 minutes ago, it actually worked great. Is that possible? Is that a thing? I don't know what I can do about that. What can I do about that? Let's see.
Sharing your primary display or your secondary display?
I have one display. It only recognizes one. It doesn't recognize that as a second display. So I'm sharing the primary display.
I'm out of ideas now.
That's okay. Interestingly enough, if you want to see what all the windows are called, as we're looping through, I'll put a message box because I wanted to see what all the windows are called. That by itself is pretty instructive. Right? So one is called Firefox Sharing. One is called the Chrome Inside VFP Form. That's our VFP form. One is called Microsoft Visual Fox Pro. And one is called PowerPoint Slideshow. And one is called List of Chromium Commands. We'll be looking at it soon. Download for that. All these windows are very interesting what they're called. Sometimes it's pretty obvious and sometimes not. You'll notice there doesn't seem to be any window. There it is, Google Calendar. So it has the word calendar in the title. And there it is. I had to switch over to another screen and come back. And for some reason, so I think with the screen sharing and the multiple screens, it wasn't refreshing the appearance. But this is a VFP form, and I put my browser in here. I could put anything I wanted here. What I also did is I moved it up 100 pixels. Why did I do that? I don't want to see the little tabs at the top. Because really what I'm showing is the browser, but I want the user to think I'm just so cool that I'm showing them the calendar. So I moved it up some pixels to get rid of all that junk at the top. And I have a calendar. I can do whatever I want in it now. It's my Google Calendar. Here's a secret. I can do this with anything I want. I can put any browser, any program, anything I want inside a window on the Fox Pro form. By using the exact same code, only instead of looking for calendar, I'm going to look for whatever the name of the window is. At first, I wasn't sure, which is why I had the thing looping through there, because I kept guessing what the name was, and that was taking way too long. So I put that in there. It was interesting to see what it was. And I had calendar with a little c, and that was not right. So the idea that you cannot show Fox Pro form with a browser or some other program inside of a window is simply incorrect. You see at the top, I've got it says right at the top there, it's a Chrome inside VFP form. I've got my little Fox Pro Fox over there, got my little Fox Pro controls, got my little Fox Pro exit button. Now Chrome is really, really smart. Or may I say evil. I'm logged in right now to my Google account. And that login carries across all my applications. If I were not logged in, instead of my calendar, it would show me, wouldn't you like to use Google Calendar? It knows, and it doesn't do that until the window is moved. When the window is moved, for example, from where it is to over here, anytime that window is moved programmatically, the calendar goes away if you're not logged in, and a sign comes up saying, wouldn't you like to use Google Calendar? How evil is that? It took me a while to figure out what's going on because I would see the calendar open there. I'd say, great, move it here. I'd say, do you want to use Google? Yes, that's what I just did, right? But I wasn't logged in. So to use it with Google Calendar requires you to be logged in. It has nothing to do with showing a form in here. It has to do with the fact that Google does not want you doing this. They want you using their own browser. They don't want you doing any of these things. And so there's little tricks in there they put in, such as when you move the window, it throws off the calendar and puts back in what you like to be in Google. So now how many people think that you cannot show a browser on the Fox Pro form? How many people think you can? How many people 20 minutes ago thought you could? How many people learned something just now? Okay, good. And my time here has been valuable.
You push the button next to stop sharing, not the stop sharing button at the top. Not the top. Just under the days
Right
of the
below
week.
1, 2, 3, 4, the toolbar there.
Oh, I'm sharing this here.
Yeah, but
Just a little,
click the,
a little vertical button.
not that one. Yeah.
This guy?
Yeah.
Like that. Right? And I'll use my exit. Now, theoretically, I could have all kinds of buttons on here. My exit one, I used very much when I was trying this out because the first 4,000 times it didn't work and I was stuck and exit. And look at that here. These are pretty simple. Well, there's maybe 30 lines of code here, and of which 10 do the heavy lifting. Because when we think of it, we think of, oh, you know what? We want to use ActiveX objects to put things on our VFP forms. But we're not thinking about it right. That's not going to work. Instead, what we do is we want Windows. The whole thing's called Windows. Fox Pro 4 Windows. Right? We create a window and put whatever we want in it. Yes. Is that a question? Yes.
Are you putting the Google form inside of the Fox Pro window?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm drawing a window on the screen. Let's take a look at it. I'm drawing a window on the screen in Fox Pro. And I'm putting inside of it the handle for the window that I found that has the calendar in it. Yes.
A question of why does Google get upset because you still got their form?
Yeah, that's a good question. Do no evil. They're not really following that. I looked up some different forums and things to see if anybody asked that question. And nobody did. They just assume that Google does that. And you know what? That's life in the Google lane. So I don't know why they do that, but they want you to be logged in because once you're logged in, they see everything. When you're logged in, every email, every appointment, every task, everything you ever do goes through the Google servers. Yes.
Have you done much work with other web browser-based things in Visual Fox Pro Windows?
Some. I tried this out on different things. And I didn't find anything it did not work on. So then I got some different browsers. I did it with Edge. I did it with Firefox. I just opened up random different programs and put it in there. And it worked all the same as long as I had the right title to look for, which is why I put that loop in there to run it and find the title that I'm looking for. I don't know of any other way to find that window except to look for the title. It's not really the most efficient way because if I had two windows with the word calendar in them, I could be getting the wrong one. So I would want to either look for something more specific or be careful about that, but I don't know of a way to narrow that down much unless I really know the whole title of the window. Yes.
You could do a scan of all the windows first, then bring up your calendar, and you got a new title made.
Right, but I don't know. You're saying what I'm really doing is I'm opening up this browser often somewhere and then putting it into my Fox Pro form.
Right.
So I have to open it up somewhere first. Once it's open, then I want to find out what the handle is. Once I find out what the handle is, then I can do whatever I want with it. In order to find out what the handle is, I'm looping through every open window and looking for something with the word calendar in it.
My point was, if you look through all the open windows first, grabbed all the titles, and then invoked your calendar.
Yes, I could also give the user a choice. Which one is the right window that you want in there?
Oh, okay. You could have two at the same.
Yes, I could have two, and I could put them both on there. I could have a bunch of little windows with previews of all my different things on it. That's just really darn cool. I just thought of that like 3 seconds ago, right? That's going in the white paper. Right? So I could actually have 6 tiles across here, each one with a different, one with the browser, one with my Microsoft Word. Now it becomes a little impractical because of screen real estate, but a lot of us have really big monitors, and which, by the way, is similar to the technique they use. If you've ever seen these security monitors where they have multiple feeds coming in and they're displaying them in tiles, they're using that same window handle approach, by the way, that we're using here, not in Fox Pro, but using that same idea of the window handles. Right, now, Chilkat, or what I actually do love this product, by the way. I think everybody should get it, despite the fact that they threw me a little bit of a curveball here. Let's take a look at Chilkat. Chilkat, by the way, has full support for Visual Fox Pro. All of their examples, all their documentation, all their instructions, full Visual Fox Pro support. This is a list of the examples that Chilkat gives. Chilkat is a wrapper around a whole bunch of Windows API calls. There are dozens of ActiveX controls in here. And to give you an idea, if you can see all these languages across the top, I don't know if you can see that or not, those are all the languages that it provides examples for. So the Fox Pro examples are all Fox Pro code. Literally, you can cut and paste that almost. And you can see the different things that it offers you examples for. You get JSON, you get emails. So we now, in some of our, I think, yeah, all of our vertical market applications, our REST post APIs and our emails and credit card processing has all been moved over to Chilkat. And all that works flawlessly. So I don't want you to get the idea that, Chilkat is a bum product. It's a great product, but Windows threw them a curveball, and they have to get it worked out. But you can see the options that I've got here are just phenomenal. These are the ones that are examples for you. You can do more than that. And the way it works is when you purchase Chilkat, you purchase it and you install it. The thing you have to remember is to download the 32-bit version, or you will be sorry, because Fox Pro is a 32-bit program. Now you think, I'm running 64-bit Windows. I should download the 64-bit version. That's wrong, okay? Because it's based on what the application, Fox Pro, is. It'll run fine in 64-bit Windows, right? But it has to match the application that you're using it in. So you want to download 32, you install it. Once you install it, you have everything you need. That's it. You don't have to register anything. You run the install program, and you're done. It's $299 for one developer, unlimited, runtime distribution. So it's very reasonably priced. And let's see, I'll show you what I started here. Before I ran into the Chrome Chilkat. Is that big enough? Make it a little bigger. Oh, yeah. There we go. Now, like many programs, the comments make the program much longer than the program really is. I also use the conventions for the variable names that Chilkat uses, not necessarily my own conventions, to keep it consistent. But what I do when I have a Chilkat operation that I want to do is the first thing I do is I unlock the global object. In order to do that, I call the unlock bundle with my secret API code. After the 30-day trial, then I have to buy a secret API code. Meantime, I can put anything for a 30-day trial in here, and it'll run on a 30-day trial. There's no difference between the trial and the real thing. So I make sure that I've got that global application object unlocked. They call it unlocked. And now what we're going to do is we're going to get a Google Auth token. And it's a simple process, really. We load up the OAuth 2 library here. We set some various parameters, and I'll show you where we get those parameters in just a second. And we call the start auth. Now, it's supposed to happen, and this will make a little bit of sense in a minute when I show you how an auth code works in Google, is that it actually has to have a browser to get you an auth code. So it opens up a browser, which comes back with the auth code, and then the object in Chilkat populates itself with the JSON that came back from the browser. That's what it doesn't do. Instead, it says failed, even though you can look right there and see it didn't fail. But I'm going to manually put it in the JSON. I sort of defeated the purpose of doing this automatically. And let's see what happens if I do that. If I run this. Okay. Now, I'm not logged in, and Google requires me to be logged in. So Google popped up a browser. It says, before you do anything, you got to have an account. So I'm going to pick my account. Google hasn't verified this app, which we're going to talk about in a second. But that's okay, because I trust Southwest Fox. Pretty much. So you see I'm getting a browser in the message that the access was granted.
So you can override the requirement by the software vendor to register their app for.
Yes. Yes. And I'm going to get to that in just a second when we talk about the auth code. So the auth code was successfully granted. Chilkat did that part correctly. What happened, though, is that I'm getting an invalid client back, unauthorized, as if it failed to get the auth code. And that, you can see it down at the bottom left-hand corner, that is what bombed out with the latest version of Windows and what created all of the complications here. So the browser is actually returning the JSON. However, the object here in Chilkat believes that it is not. Therefore, you can't really go further. Does that make sense? Now you're saying, auth code, verified app. What is all that? How does it work in Google? That's what you're thinking, right? That's what you were thinking, right? Right. Oh, well, that's pretty good then, because right here, I happen to have an exact example of the very thing. In order to get an auth code for programming Google, all you have to do is go through a few minor hoops. So you log into your Google account, and there's actually no button. You have to know the URL to press to get to here. When I get to here, what I'm looking at is my Google projects. So I created a project called Southwest Fox. Once I created that project called Southwest Fox, I had to create a whole bunch of things. I had to tell it which APIs I'm going to use. So I'm using the BigQuery API because I happen to know through the research of several hours, right, that has all of the calendar calls in it. Then I have to tell it the credentials that I want to use. So I create OAuth 2.0 client IDs. I created one called Southwest Fox, SW Fox. Pretty simple. I don't need a password or anything, because remember, it's going to make me be logged into Google. I'm going to have to tell it all the information about where my consent screens are in my application, which I made up. I can publish it in test or now, and here's why the whole verified is a problem. There are two kinds of applications that you can get that you can be authorized using Google: an internal and an external. Internal means that I give a list of users in this screen here, and those are the users that can access this project. So if I'm working in an internal organization and I've got 30 users, I stick all their usernames in there. I don't have to have anything verified. Google doesn't care what I do. And yes, go ahead.
By username, you mean
The Google username, yes. Which means collecting Google usernames. An external app is what our problem is. Because an external app means any user with a Google account can access it. And that means that Google has to verify it to make sure that you're not accessing oversensitive data. What they're really doing is scanning your website for whatever information they can glean. This takes 4 to 6 weeks. Why does it take 4 to 6 weeks, you ask? I don't know. Doesn't seem like it should take 4 to 6 weeks. And that verification process, they will check your website. So since I'm not verified, I had to bypass that. And that was what happened since I'm not verified, I got this message. Google hasn't verified this application. Are you sure you really want to use it? So just like an SSL error, I can press advanced and I can go ahead and go anyway. This is a big hassle to a user, to your end user, but Google wants that app verified. I have never really seen, I'll take that back. I have seen upon occasion Google kicking that back because they feel that it accesses too much private information. Now, how many people know how much is too much? Well, Google somehow does. And then there's a whole appeal process. It's everything you can possibly imagine. Once it's verified, then I won't get the screen anymore. So with that auth code, the OAuth 2.0 code, I can access anything inside of these calendars that I want. I can access individual appointments. Google does not like the whole OAuth 2.0 system. They support it because they have to, but they don't like it because they feel that the apps have to be verified, etc. They want you to open up your browser and type google.com. And that's the end of it. But they can't quite get away with that yet. So that auth code, that's what Chilkat is getting for you. And you saw that the browser said auth code provided, but Chilkat believed that it wasn't. And that's why we can't do anything more with that auth code because we don't have one. Once we have that auth code, we can do these things that are listed in the Chilkat examples. For example, calendar. Now, these are all the examples of actual FoxPro code that they give you. And if that's not enough, you can click this here and it'll give you about 50 more examples. For $299, you're getting a lot of code written for you. So if I wanted to get a particular Google Calendar, the code I would use, the first thing I would have to do is give it the auth code. It's just a JSON file. Say the JSON file called auth code. It's a simple text file. There's nothing fancy in there. There's no binary content or anything like that. It's just getting that piece of information back is crucial. Then I can do all of these different things. However, there is one more gotcha. It doesn't give you any visual. You don't get visual. You get data back in JSON format. So if I want to get a calendar back, there's 100 appointments on there. You know what I get? A JSON file with 100 listed in it. Then it's up to me, the developer, to do something with it. So between that and the fact that Chilkat bombed out, I started rethinking whether or not the OAuth 2 code is really the way to go. If I was having a major application, I probably would. But this is a lot of work to get back a JSON file listing all of the appointments on a calendar. That's a lot of work. Maybe you don't think so, but I'm a little bit lazier than most people. That was funny, a joke. I'll tell you ahead of time from now on when the jokes are coming up, okay?
That auth code is not unique to the calendar. It's unique to Google, right?
That's correct. I can use that auth code for me, and I can get any one of my calendars with it. So the auth code is unique to me and Google, not necessarily a specific calendar. With that auth code, I can do things I can't do any other way. This is a list of all the things that Chilkat thinks you should be able to do. And I intend to demonstrate some of these. Imagination. Change the color of an event. These are all things the user can do interactively. But Google provides no COM object. You cannot create object on anything to do with Google. Period. It does not exist and will never exist. There's no object you can create that will give you a handle to a Google Calendar or to anything in Google. Google specifically does not allow that. So our normal idea of create object, for a web browser or something like that, and then manipulate that object can't be done in Google. And some of the best minds have tried it. It just can't be done. Google does not expose any of that information. Questions?
Once you have your OAuth to your Google, does that then also give you access to Drive?
Separate auth codes. I'm sorry, the question was, once I have that OAuth 2.0 code for the calendar, does that allow me to use that to access other things in Google, like Drive or something like that? And the answer is no, because there's different endpoints that you have to request the code from depending on what you want it for. So it's just the word at the end of the endpoint /calendar/drive/contacts, right? You cannot get it all in one big shot. Another disadvantage of this.
I assume the token does expire.
The token does expire. There's a function in Chilkat to refresh it. And that function does not really require anything from you except to run the function. It'll simply renew that code for another period of time. What period of time, you ask? That's a really good question. I found like a bunch of different times. So I went on the trusty internet where I researched the matter extensively, using all of the resources I had available. And the answer I got was, yeah, depends. The smallest amount of time I saw was 15 minutes, and the largest I saw was 90 minutes. So I would refresh a token every 15 minutes just because I wanted to be safe. It's not clear, and nobody seems to know what the time for expiration is based on. It's not based on whether it's a calendar or context. Nobody knows what it's based on. It's a secret. So I said, you know what? There's got to be other ways to do what Chilkat's doing. There's got to be other ways to put that calendar on my form in VFP. We saw one way of manipulating the windows, which was cool. But if I'm going to be doing a lot of different stuff, I don't know if it's practical or not. So I looked at a product called WebKit X. I don't know if everybody's heard this. WebKit X is an ActiveX wrapper around Chromium, the engine that drives Chrome. So that should be easy to do, right? I installed it. I installed WebKit X, the trial. It's $600 for one developer. And while I love you guys, I was not going to spend $600 for you, right? So I 30-day trial, and I ran it, and it should have been very simple to do. And Fox was gone. There you go. Nope. There you go. Right. I created a form. And on this form, I put my WebKit object. That is totally the wrong form. But it looked good. So the right form. It's my WebKit view form. I'm going to see here.
Maybe the WK1 form.
WK1. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Doug. Put a gold star on this guy's chart, okay? Good job there. So I put the WebKit object on here. And then in the onCreate, on browser ready, I told it to open Google Calendar. Simple pimple, which is really not a programming term. I have too many children, okay, at home, saying things like that. I don't have too many children. Too many of them say that. The comma in that sentence might not have come out in exactly the right place. Right? So that should be very simple. Right? And then I can do whatever I want with it, right? Watch what happens. Google says no dice. That's not a real browser that we recognize. We're not going to let you do it. There's no way around this. So I contacted the WebKit X people, and they said, well, that's really not what we're designed to do. What we're really designed to do is manipulate HTML and various things like that in a Chrome environment on your form, as opposed to loading a Google website. And I said, well, Google websites are pretty much HTML. And they said, yes, but that's not what we do. And I said, okay, so what you do is you manipulate HTML and JavaScript on the form here, right? Right. Okay, I've got some HTML and JavaScript for you. I'm going to send it over here. Put it on here, right? But Google, again, is too smart. And it knows it's not really a browser here, and it will not let me open the calendar no matter what. And in fact, it knows there's no login. It tells me learn about supported browsers. What?
There's a sign-in button right at the top.
Yep, sure is.
Does it?
It does not. It's going to give me the exact same thing when I sign in. Right? I don't know what kind of browser it thinks it is. because WebKit X is a wraparound Chromium, which is the Chrome engine. So I can't really tell from it what kind of browser it thinks it is, but it doesn't think it's the right kind.
So that object doesn't come in with a right click and you can see the inspector sort of thing?
No, unfortunately, it does not. So WebKit X turned out to be really good for some things. If I was putting together HTML and JavaScript and wanted it to put it in a window in a forum here and make my own sort of web page, WebKit X would be very good for that. And Edge, as we may know, all right, is also based on the same Chromium engine now. Microsoft gave in to Google. Microsoft used to never give in to anybody. Right? They give in to Google and are using the Google engine in Edge, which means Edge also does not expose any COM objects. So I decided WebKit X, not going to do it. Big and the beautiful. So, wrong button. I went to the ant view. I call the ants come marching. Ant view you get from a website called, interestingly enough, antview.dev. There's not a whole lot of information here. Their documentation consists of online help, which is some facts, and installations. And it does tell you how to install it in FoxPro. If anybody followed these directions, they would not be much of a FoxPro programmer. Where was that there? I'm sorry, documentation. Those are all the frequently asked questions about AntView. Wow, it's a lot. So what it suggests you do is load the ActiveX into your toolbox, and then so I just put it on the form. And in fact, what I did is I used the example from AntView, and I got pretty far with it. Just gotta find FoxPro where I left it here. There we go. Now I'm going to change to the AntView folder. It came with a bunch of examples in every programming language, including Visual FoxPro. Now, the fact that they support Visual FoxPro tells you FoxPro is dead or FoxPro is really cool. You pick. In fact, all of these products have a strong support for Visual FoxPro. That actually was a little bit surprising to me. I don't know why, but it was a little bit surprising to me. So I'm going to go with I'll go with the advanced demo. And here's our advanced demo. Ant lookup. Let's do it. Okay. Okay, I'm going to call the main program. And it basically doesn't do that much. It just instantiates the object and sets a few properties. Yep, that is a syntax error. Have you ever had the experience where an error comes up and your first reaction is, that can't be? But then you think about it for a second. Yeah, actually, it probably could be. So we want to AntView ant examples. And that's a little small for me. Okay. It defaults to showing you its own website. Can't really blame it. I can put anything I want in here. Doug, what's your website?
we do selflessfox.net. SWFox.net.
Fox.net. Go. What?
Blocking it because of all our violations that we found yesterday.
Oh, take out the W, forget the www, just try swfox.net.
Well, let's go back to Google. Let's do Google. Let's do google.com/calendar. Okay. Spent all morning doing this.
Did your demo expire?
Here, let's right. It gave me a list of some suggested places to go to show off its great abilities. I did not. You're right. You said that? Whoever did gets another gold star. Doug, take your gold star. Give it to that guy, okay? So now, this is the FoxPro form. This is the form. In this control, I can do anything I want here. And it has the functionality that I would have had to spend gazillions of time programming in something like a Chilkat. It doesn't exist in a WebKit X. It's not just displaying it. I can view the source. I can do all these different things that I can do with a real website. Let's view the source. There you go. That is the source code for Google.com. I can take a look at the cookies. I can print it. I pressed help and I got the same 6 FAQs, so we're not going to do that. Back, forward, home, HTML to clipboard, view the source, view text. This is what a website on a VFP form should look like, in Moi's humble opinion. Forget the humble. In Moi's opinion, right? This is what it should look like on a VFP form. There's no indication here at all that this is VFP. Now, it could be. I could have the little fox over there if I wanted. Or I could have, whatever I wanted on it. But if you want to look at this form, what was it called? I believe it was this one. Oh. This is the form that we were just running. This is my ant view object on here. And these buttons simply manipulate that object. So view source simply calls the proper method in the ant view. Ant view is such a crazy name. In the ant view ActiveX control, which is request current. And the text, let's forwards calls this form, ant view 1, go forward. What do you want to think backwards is? Crazy guess? Go back.
Go forward -1.
Sites.
This with the calendar?
Yes. Let's do that. Let's do it right. What did I do last time here? Where'd it go? Just saw it. You saw it, right?
I think you
This one. This one here. Yep. Wow, you got your gold star back. You're going to finish this day good, I think. Right. So now I'm going to put in I'm going to type. Let's do google.com and calendar. This is one way to call it. And I'm going to hit go. And there's my Google Calendar. Now, raise your hand if you think this looks like some old-fashioned VFP form. Raise your hand if this is really cool. This ant view, right, is the answer to the problem. Chilkat will let you do all this stuff, but you have to put it all together. You have to get that complicated auth code. Then you have to put every one of these things together with all the JSON data it gives you. Now, the advantage to that is you could be looking through the data. You can decide to skip certain appointments you don't want to display. However, it's a lot of work. Anytime the user goes to the next week, you get a whole nother JSON to populate. Skip a month, now you get another whole JSON to populate. So even though it has all of those different options of things you can do, it's a very extensive amount of programming once you get the auth code. And make sure you refresh the auth code. For me, you know, if the user wants to add an appointment, they can just click there and add their own appointment.
Did you say how much AmpView was?
Yes, it's $600. I'm sorry, $300.
300 euros.
Yeah, it's about $300. And that is one developer license. And all these things are based on how many developers. So I assume it's one simultaneous developer if you're not doing it at the same time. I didn't really say that because you saw the FAQs were somewhat limited. So the AntView people seem to have an attitude. So we made this cool product. We'll tell you what you need to do to operate it. But don't bother us after that. Which fits right in with the whole Google feed. Any questions at this point? Yes.
Yes. What if the goal of the exercise is now to get information back from that control that you just added an event and somehow consume that in your base function?
Without the auth code, that's the only way to do it is with the
So
auth
you
code.
have to do, that's where Chilkat, if you need more of a
Correct.
two-way interaction.
Correct.
This is just
Correct.
a convenience.
In that case, you would have to take all the JSON data, create a calendar and draw it, populate it, or use a control like a DBI control, and stick all of the appointments on there. But that means you can have a handle to any one of those appointments. When they press edit, you can open up the appointment in your own editing screen and do whatever you wanted with it. Correct. You could say, oh, you have 32 appointments tomorrow. That's too many. That's the Chilkat approach of extensive programming, auth code, but do whatever you want. You can have whatever calendar you want. There's a gazillion classes of calendars for VFP, and there's also nice products like a DBI calendar controls that you can easily populate all those appointments with. But adding, deleting, that's all on you with the Chilkat library then. So you summed it up very well. It's two different approaches. If I want to be able to manipulate the actual data on the calendar, I need the OAuth 2.0 code, and then I can use that to manipulate the data. And then it's on me to display the data in any way that I want. If I simply want to be able to put a Google Calendar on my VFP form with some buttons to do some cool things in my application, then AntView is really the way to go, in Juan's opinion. Yes, you had a question?
Yeah, there's I think Christoph did a session a while back on something called Ceph Sharp, which was also a way to put a browser in a VFP form.
Mhm.
You played with that, or?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not. I did not see that. I did not see that. Another question. Other questions? Yes.
My apologies if you have already mentioned and I didn't get it, but I'm assuming if you register, can you register our app and just skip the login process?
Yes. You can register the app, and Google will within 4 to 6 weeks it'll verify it. And by some mysterious process, it'll want to visit your website. It'll want to know it'll read your data policy. You have to provide a link to your data policy, your privacy policy, your consent form for them to opt in, And it'll check all those things that they exist and that Google feels they're proper. And then you won't have to do all that. It'll go straight to the calendar.
Without the authorization?
Once you have the OAuth 2 code.
You still have to get the auth.
Correct. You have to get the OAuth 2 code, but you won't have to, your app is unverified. You won't have that screen. Once you call the calendar, it'll go straight to the calendar. You won't have any unverified. Yes.
Do you have that same trouble with Antu?
Um,
You have to register your app with them and things like that?
no. Anthony doesn't really care what you do as long as you pay. Yes.
It's the browser from it there. Is this Chromium or Explorer?
This is
It's Edge. And these are the Edge.
this is a browser.
No, Antu.
Oh, this here. What browsers are running? It's a Chromium base, so it's Chromium/Edge. It's Chrome/Edge. The question was, what browser is this based on? And the answer was that it's based on Chromium, so therefore it's Chrome/Edge. Which means I could have a browser here and I could do debugging. I can do anything I can do with my browser. Other questions? Okay, other questions? Now, I mentioned before, all of these products support the supposedly dead and obsolete VFP. This is where everybody starts saying, more Southwest Fox, more Southwest Fox. Right? No, but that was a good thought, right? We all had that thought. Come on, Doug. Come on, Rick. Come on, tomorrow you can do it. Right. The little geek gatherings that could. All right. So we looked at Google calendars and the fact that they can be published. And when you have that URL, you can go to the calendar and maybe edit it depending on what rights you've been given. But there's no way to interact with it. It's just simply bringing up the calendar. We saw that a browser or any application really can be shown in a form using VFP by using window handles. An approach that I was not familiar with before. We talked about Chilkat. Chilkat can do a whole array of things, as we saw, and it's very supportive of VFP. We had a problem with it, that a Windows feature broke one of their API calls. Given my past experience with them, I have no doubt that at some time they'll fix it. I've had only good experiences with them. So they regularly come out with updates every 6 months. So I'm sure at some point they'll slide that in there. Won't be listed as an official bug. It'll just be slid in there. Oh no, that works. Try it out. Using the latest version? Yeah, okay. Now, we looked at WebKit X, and there are other things, the same idea, where it's a wrapper around the Chromium engine, which is cool, but doesn't really work because Google is doing everything it can to avoid that happening. Google does not want you using a browser that it doesn't think is okay. It lets me use Firefox, and obviously lets me use Chrome and Edge because they're based on Chromium. I haven't tried Opera, but I'm assuming that too. But anything that's not considered a browser, quote unquote, by Google, it's not going to allow you. So therefore, WebKit X is good if you want to be able to manipulate the HTML, make a web page, put some JavaScript on it. WebKit X would be great. And it has methods for handling JavaScript, as does AntView. And AntView works very well at being able to put anything onto a form in VFP. It's designed with emphasis on browsers because you see it has all of those methods. Go back, go forwards. In theory, I could put something else on there. Put any URL that I want. I could put anything I want on there. Give a good example there. So using AntView, to summarize, will allow you to very smoothly integrate putting a browser into your application. And it's sort of an extension of the idea of using the window handles. However, if you want to be able to get down and manipulate the individual appointments and the individual things that appear on the calendar, then you're going to have to use a Chilkat. There are no other options like that other than Chilkat that support VFP well. Everything is Ruby and Python, et cetera, et cetera. So those are really the two approaches. Approach number one, the Chilkat with little teeny things. It's very, right? There's a word there, and I'm going to think of it in a minute, but it takes you all the way down to everything you want to be able to edit, delete, whatever you want to do. And you saw the list of all the different things it can do. Forget just Google. We use it for all kinds of things, and it supports VFP very well. Or I want to be able to show things on my browser. I want to be showed as part of my VFP application. I want them to have an option, update my Google Calendar, and it should open right there on the VFP forum. For something like that, I would use AntView. Those are two different approaches. Approach of a granular, there we go, like down to a granular using Chilkat, or general using the AntView. Any questions? Yes.
Just curious, do you know why WebEx is a wrapper and AmpView they're both based on?
Both based on Chromium, theoretically.
So what did you know AmpView did?
I was wondering the same thing, and the answer is I don't know. I don't know. I was wondering the same thing, and I did look on some like support forums for AntView and for web, and I didn't see anything that really would tell me that. So I'm sorry. The question was why does something like WebKit X have trouble displaying things that AntView can display? Okay, they're both active objects. They're both calling whatever they're. So, and my answer was I don't know. I did look around, but I didn't see. That's probably too proprietary for them to let out. Whatever they're doing, it's obviously different. Other questions? Yes.
I asked about the skipping of the login process. My question is more that can we show the calendar without like showing the AntView page? I mean, without putting the URL up there.
Yes. What you can do is you can publish the calendar, which will give you a URL. And the URL will be some long URL. And then you can use that and display that in AntView. So if you had that calendar published, let's say it was the company calendar, you could use that URL to display that specific calendar. If you do not give it a specific URL, when you log in, it uses the default calendar for that user. So my default calendar, right, if I wanted to use the Southwest Fox calendar, I would publish it and I would get that URL string, and then I'll put that URL into AntView instead of putting in just plain old Google Calendar. Does that answer your question? Okay. Other questions? Yes. Yes. I tried a bunch of different applications, and AntView worked very well for them. WebKit X has some built-in support for things like PDF, but despite the fact that AntView's website is a little on the skimpy side, and WebKit X comes with a ton of documentation, it's also a very heavy runtime. WebKit X is it's a weighty thing. But yes, the answer was yes. I got to learn to do that. Yes. Other questions?
There's a question from the
yes.
remote.
Go
Will AntView work with Firefox?
Will AntView work with Firefox? Yes. See how I did that? Just yes, without a whole long talking. I tried out all these things with Firefox. I happen to be a fan of Firefox because of its web development tools, and I had no problem. Any other online questions? No. Okay, any other questions? Okay, then. Oh, this is where we take questions now. Got to follow the slides. Okay, the white paper update will go on the Southwest Fox FTP site. I'm assuming that you're keeping the whole Southwest Fox site and FTP and everything, right?
Yeah.
Right. Terrific. I'd like to thank you for attending the very last session of Southwest Fox. Please fill out your evaluations and have only happy memories of Southwest Fox. Thank you.